Hello everyone, this is the third in the series of As Ifs, and today I want to talk about the Shul. We all know that within the community that's probably the most holiest place we have today, but I believe that we have to put it into perspective. So let's quote from the Code of the Rambam and see how does he refer to a Shul versus how he refers to the temple. When it comes to the Shul, the Rambam does not dedicate a whole chapter to a Shul, Hilchot Beit HaKnesset, but rather within Hilchot Tefillah, within the laws of prayer, in the 11th chapter, he devotes lines to a Shul. And he says, "Batei knesiyot u'batei midrashot nohagin bahen kavod." You have to honor them. And we spoke at length in the past about eating and drinking there, talking about things that are not appropriate. That's giving it honor. And then he goes on to say, "Hayala bet knesset u'beit midrash shtei ptachin, lo yasenu pendaria kidei lishkanes bepetach zeh v'yetzeh bepetach shekenegdo lekarev haderech." You can't go into a shul to make a shortcut, but rather you have to spend time in there and only then continue on your way. She'asur likanes bahen ela lidvar mitzvah. The only time you could go into a shul is for a mitzvah. So to sum up, the shul is a place that demands honor. You cannot make a shortcut out of it. And finally, you only go in there for a mitzvah. If we now turn over to Hilchot Beit HaBechira, the Rambam devotes endless chapters to the actual laws of a Beit HaMikdash, nothing to do with Korbanot. And in the 7th chapter of Hilchot Beit HaBechira, he says, "Mitzvah tasei lira min HaMikdash." There is a positive commandment to actually have awe from the Beit HaMikdash. Shene'emar Mikdashi tirau. Lo yikanes adam lahara bayit b'maklo. You don't go in with a stick, cane. O b'min'al sheberaglav. You don't go in with leather shoes. O be'afudanto. You don't go in with an undershirt. O be'avak sha'al raglav. Or with dust on your feet. O be'ma'ot tzorarin lo bizdino. With a wallet. Today I would add that it is totally inappropriate for those that go up the Har HaBayit to take a selfie up there. That's exactly what the Rambam's talking about, that you have to have awe from the place. He ends by saying that you can't make a shortcut out of Har HaBayit and only go in there for a mitzvah like a shul. All these laws, outside of the last two, none of this is written with regard to a shul. You don't have a mitzvah of Yirat Beit HaKnesset or from a shul. You can go in there with your wallet, with leather shoes, etc., etc. Why is that? Mesechet Brachot Daf Samech Gimel Amud Aleph, top of the page, says, "Har HaBayit asur b'minal, aval Beit HaKnesset deshari b'minal." Har HaBayit you can't go in with leather shoes, but a shul you can. Explains Rava, Ki beito. Ma beito akapendari akapidinish arekiko minal lo kabidinish. Ape Beit HaKnesset kapendari yahude asur. Rekikao minal sharei. Rava explains that you have to treat the shul like your home, quoting a pasuk. Just like at home, you would be very upset if someone used your home as a shortcut to get to somewhere else. But on other things, they don't mind. They don't mind you walk in with leather shoes, etc. So too in a shul. Explained Rav Soloveitchik in a shir he gave in honor of his father's yortzeit. It's printed up in Shiurim Lezecher Abi Mari, Chelek Aleph, pages Pei through Pei Aleph. Talking about the sanctity of Shabbos versus Yontif, he puts in the following in order to explain his point. And that is, Ikara Hevdel ben Beit HaMikdash leBeit HaKnesset. A Beit HaMikdash, he says, is the house of God. When you come there 3 times a year, you're coming to be seen by God. He doesn't say this, but I'll add that we say this in the Musaf, quoting the Pasuk, Shalosh pe'amim b'shana, Yira'eh chozechorcha. Not that you have to go see, but be seen by God, who rests on Har HaBayit in the Beis HaMikdash, doesn't go anywhere, is there, and you go visit him in his home. But a shul, says Rav Soloveitchik, is when God actually busies himself and bothers himself to come to your home. And therefore, says Rav Soloveitchik, when you're in the Beis HaMikdash, you're God's guest, but when you go to shul, God is your guest. There's no question that when 10 people come together, there's Hashrat Hashchina. As we explained many, many times, God's holy presence rests within a minyan, but it's in your turf. When you go to the Beis HaMikdash, you're in God's turf. And therefore, this special law of Yirah, of awe, is only in the Beis HaMikdash, with all the limitations of no leather shoes and don't take your wallet, etc., etc., because it's the way to act in the holy palace of the King of the universe, versus a shul, which is your place. And thus, he says, Beis HaMikdash is called Beit Hashem, the house of God. Samachti ba'omlimui Beit Hashem nelech. Achad sha'alti, etc. Shivti bebeit Hashem. What we say after Ein Elokeinu Laman Beit Hashem Elokeinu Avakshat Ovlach, versus a shul. A shul, as we saw in the Gemara, is Beit Kebeito. It's your home, but God comes to it and rests in it, and therefore you can't do inappropriate things. You have to honor it, but it is not God's home. It's our home. Therefore, says Rav Soloveitchik, you can sell a shul. You can literally, with the Shivat Tuvei Ha'ir, B'ma'amad Anshei Ha'ir, can sell a shul, because at the end of the day, it belongs to us. You can't sell the Beis HaMikdash. You can't sell Harabayit. The Kedusha is there according to the Rambam. Kitcha l'sha'ata, the kitcha la'atid lavo. It's God's abode, not ours, and therefore we have absolutely no right to sell it. From this perspective, you can understand why the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot Avav Amud Bet, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, V'sha'ah sh'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba bebeit HaKnesset, ve'lo matza ba'asara miyadu koes. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to shul and doesn't see a minyan, he gets upset. And he quotes the pasuk, Madua bati ve'ein ish. Why did I come and there's no one here? Namely, God comes from his holy abode to our place. From this perspective, ends Rav Soloveitchik. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'al beit HaKnesset v'arino tzarich lavo lemikdasho. God has to come to shul. He doesn't have to come to his Beis HaMikdash. He's always there. Shama ashrai bebeito shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kanu ba al beito shel hatzibur. So if there's an as-if, that's the biggest one, it is this. The Gemara says in the Sechet Megillah that our shuls are a mikdash me'at. Not a small temple, but a little bit of the temple. Yes, there's Hashrat Hashchina. Yes, God bothers himself to come if there's a minyan. But no, it remains our home and doesn't have that additional yira that you have when you go to Harabayit, to God's home. The holiest place in the community is only, at the end of the day, our place. God willing, we will once again not only be zocha as we are today, to go up the Harabayit and to be in God's abode, but to actually see the palace rebuilt and practice all these laws, from no leather shoes to no wallet, definitely no selfies, in the abode of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.